Greg Bowman.
Here.
David Randolph.
Here.
Carol Minden.
Here. I hear a request to approve the minutes from May 7th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Travis Fulkerson.
Yes.
John Brown.
Yes.
Scott West.
Yes.
Leon Davis.
Yes.
Greg Bowman.
Yes.
David Randolph.
Yes.
Carol Minden.
Yes. First item on the agenda is TUP 20-45, request by Jenks Fireworks for a temporary use permit to allow for the retail sale of fireworks at 728 West Main. My notes say that this item is withdrawn. Is that correct, Marseille?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Minden. This item has been withdrawn. They were not able to negotiate the terms of the location, so it is not on the agenda. Or it is on the agenda, but you cannot take action on it. It's been withdrawn.
All right, so duly noted that it is withdrawn. The next item on the agenda is to request to recommend approval from Ordinance 1519, removing the zoning fees from the Jenks zoning code and replacing with language referencing the master fee schedule. Marseille?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Minden, the planning commissioners and staff. This item is a recommendation to allow the planning commission to approve the, I'm gonna have to read it. I'm trying to try. Basically, staff is in support of recommending approval of Ordinance 1519, removing all fee language from chapters 9, 10, 13, 14, 15, 17, and 19, and for the ultimate creation of a master fee schedule. Staff has been working internally to get a master fee schedule on all the fees, and as you know, or you may not know, but if someone comes in to submit an application, you have to go to different sections of the code to find out what they would need to pay, and this kind of takes those out and puts it into one schedule. And the code requires that any text amendments in the zoning code must be recommended for approval by Planning Commission, and that's why it's before you tonight. It should be adopted at the June 2nd City Council.
Sounds good. Any questions or comments from the commissioners?
This seems like a great idea. Wasn't the idea to get fees paid up front was the major motivation, as well as consolidating where the fees are?
Yes, it'll be very helpful in doing both of those. It also creates a pathway to transparency for the citizens so that they're not stuck with payments and fees that they weren't aware of because it was hard to find.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
John Brown, motion to approve the master fee schedule.
David Randolph, second.
Fulkerson.
Yes.
John Brown.
Yes.
Scott West.
Yes.
Leon Davis.
Yes.
Greg Bowman.
Yes.
David Randolph.
Yes.
Carol Minden.
Yes. Okay, that concludes our new business. We'll go on to old business. And the item on the main item on the agenda, the first one is PA 20-17, request by Robert Bell for an amendment to the Jenks comprehensive plan at the general location of 813 East B Street. Marseille, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chairman Minden and Planning Commission. We do have some public comments, and I think if it's all right with you, I'd like to go ahead and ask for Carrie to screen share those before we get into this, and let Brandon read through them, just so that you know this is a comprehensive plan amendment. And the request is by Mr. Bell. He's asking to amend it from, I'm struggling tonight. Medium intensity to medium intensity with Riverfront Entertainment District, which is the RED. So these are the questions and comments. The items were all submitted. There were 5 total on this project. I've spoken several times with the applicant, and we agreed that it would be better just to have the comprehensive plan hearing first. And depending on the recommendation and council's input, we can move forward with the zoning. When he does make his presentation, which I believe he is online and available, he will probably go ahead and cast the whole vision for the project, just so that the public will be aware, and so that you all will also be aware of the long-term plan. But I have recommended, and Mr. Bell is aware, that the only action taken tonight is on the comprehensive plan amendment and not the rezoning, the planning and development, the utility easement, or the plat. With that being said, I'll ask everyone to view the screen for the public comments, and I'll let Brandon take it from here.
All right. If at any point I start getting scraggly or there's any issue, just let me know and I'll stop for a second and we can figure that out. Okay. First comment is Lloyd Landreth. Sent this via email, 801 East B Street. It is the lawyer's office right next to the subject property. His comment, I'm going to start at the actual comment. I would summarize my comments as follows. I am in support of some development of the property. In its current condition, it represents a negative and not a beneficial use. I oppose the use of development of the property that requires any additional utility, RW, utility structures, or burden/easements on my property. I oppose the use of vibration, compaction, and development of the property due to the likely need for placement of intrusive surfaces. All surface water drainage must be properly managed. It is unclear from the application materials how the property is split into 2 lots. The subject tract would seem to here they rely on the other tract to support it, as there are not enough land to support 2 independent uses. The project proponents should fully address the questions of what conditions have changed since the zoning from residential to OM. In other words, what has changed that would justify departure from comprehensive plan setting to OM use, OM use. Any use of the property should be required to demonstrate such use has accounted for ample parking spaces and driveway roads, ingress and egress that does not rely on burden on my property or residential properties in the area. Ornamental privacy fencing must be required along the western boundaries of the property, including fencing or some sort of other type of physical barrier along the entry of the property line shared with my property, so that users of the subject tract cannot divide or drive or otherwise cross into my property in any way. Trash dumpsters and any other waste recyclable or recyclable receptacles should be placed in the designated area as far east and north of the property as possible. In other words, all the waste receptacles should be hidden as far away from the residential use and my property as possible. The business hours of any use of the property should be compatible with my office use and residential use. As noted, I have no expectations that this property would remain unoccupied in unoccupied condition. The city of Jenks and those who live and work in the immediate area can benefit from a well-planned, attractive, and compatible use. I appreciate the efforts of the Planning Commission to abide by these criteria in their consideration of the zoning, respectively, LL. Carol Morgan, 404 West B Street. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a couple questions that I would like to have addressed at tonight's meeting. Are there current plans to alleviate the traffic congestion going east on B Street at 9? There are already extreme congestion in Jenks Bridge through the intersection, and down B Street is already not under control. Why is the city information mailbox, A-frame, and the real estate sign on the property adjacent to the lot at 813 East B Street? The zoning is RS1 on your map. In the previous hearing, the residents thought both properties were zoned OM. Please read and address these issues during tonight's meeting. Sincerely, Aaron M. Morgan, second, Carol A. Morgan. Eric and Melody Castrillon, apologies if I mess up your name here. 313 North 8th Street. My neighbors Aaron Morgan gave me your email address. I did not receive notice of public hearing this week's concerning parcel owned by Rob Bell location against my property at 313 North 8th Street. I had a good conversation with Rob Bell concerning the direction he is intending to go on the property. We were promised a fence in the event the city passes and changes the use of this property. I'd like to attend said meeting if I can out on the line. I am asking the city planners allow for the restaurant and said changes only in the event it increases the appearance and adds the values to the community. I just ask, please do not allow a high-rise apartment or condo or office building that will overlook into our backyard. Anything fun is okay. Anything food-related to the Riverwalk nostalgic should be or would be exciting and valuable to us as a community. Thank you for your consideration, Aaron and Melody Castrillon. Aaron Morgan, second, 404 West B Street. Ladies and gentlemen, the history of local concerns about changing zoning code to commercials of any kind is on record at the City Hall. The objections were confirmed by the City Council and the Planning Commission, and OM zoning was agreed upon. The problems for this property owners and residents at the same time, more congestion, unknown business, multi-story structures, noise, and pollution. The property is bordered by RS1, RS3, and OM. It is fronted by 2-lane residential street and is already at capacity. Since the last hearing a short time ago, the OM designation still seems logical, reasonable, and appropriate for 813 East B Street. I am opposed to changing zoning to ROC, river-oriented commercial. Best regards, Aaron Morgan. Carolyn Morgan again, 404 West B Street. As a property owner around 813 East B, I am greatly concerned about the property zoning change to allow river-oriented commercial in our neighborhood. Our property backs up to this property, and any activity there will directly affect the peace, tranquility, and value of our property. Traffic noise, music, delivery trucks, customer activities, right over the fence from our backyard, will be too close to the homes and the surrounding properties. You already have to deal with noise from Riverwalk, and this would be essentially in our backyard. Our property at 317 North 8 has been home for several years. At the present time, we are renting it to friends of the family and do not wish to lose good occupants who may not want to deal with the problems brought on by river-oriented entertainment establishments right on the other side of the fence. The previous determination made the last zoning hearing was OM was appropriate. The need for protection from improper zoning in the neighborhood remains. We still want our neighbors to remain a neighborhood and not adversely affected by noisy obstructive business. Sincerely, Carolyn Morgan. Marie Olson, 714 East E Street /app. Good evening, members of the Jenks Planning Commission. I'm Marie Olson. I live at 714 East E Street Avenue. I have lived here since 1986. I am now retired. I purchased the home largely because of its location at the end of the cul-de-sac in a quiet neighborhood. With the exception of loud music issued oriented from the Riverwalk half of last year, this has remained a peaceful residential neighborhood. I'm very concerned about the proposed zoning change to property 813 East B Street, as this property backs into our cul-de-sac. Twice before, towards the end of 2018, requests to change the zoning from CS were considered and denied by the commission. The city council in the neighborhood reached a compromise, and the zoning was changed to OM this time. An office building was to be built and the purchaser stated that he could build in such a way that would not invade backyard privacy of the homes backing into the property, that the traffic would be modest, and that they would install a fence to prevent spillover traffic into our cul-de-sac on East Street. As you know, nothing was built, and now we're here facing these issues again. The property in question is surrounded by residential homes, with the exception of the property next door on B Street, which is OM, Lawyers. The only commercial zoning of any kind is either across the street, facing A Street, or across the levee. My question is, what has changed to justify the changing of the property to commercial ROC at this time? Yes, we who live in the neighborhood are very concerned about the negative effects of something like a restaurant or stores being built there. We know such business would of necessity bring traffic noise from patrons and suppliers, and the real possibility of music or entertainment right next door also exists. The zoning change, without a doubt, will hurt the value of our homes. I'm asking you to please honor the comprehensive plan to protect the residents in this neighborhood. Thank you. Marinelle Scott Hall, 717 East A Street. My name is Marinelle Scott Hall. I live at 717 East E Street in Jenks. I've built my property since 2002. I'm writing, as I am unaware if I'll be able to attend the May 7th meeting, which was when this was originally meant to be on here, since I am not in person but online. I have been assured this will be read in the meeting. Hello. I'm extremely concerned, as are my neighbors. I thought the matter was settled once and for all. I am talking about the zoning issue concerning property 813 East B Street, changing from zoning OM to ROC. I and a number of my neighbors have been in meetings several times in the past. We understood that the original owner had passed away, and that relatives had tried to sell it for a while with no success. They were advised to have the zone changed and that it would sell. The first prospective buyer wanted to make it a commercial and put a strip mall there. We did not feel safe with that idea and voiced on them. We were then made aware of the comprehensive plan that protected our neighborhood because it was a residential housing area. It was promised that if anything would be at that location, it would fit into the same category. On the corner right of the property is a law firm that has done a wonderful job of doing that very thing, which I personally appreciate. The next time we appeared at the commission, a second prospective buyer came. This time the owner of the property pleaded that they wanted to sell the property and needed the finance. I told them I appreciated the fact that they wanted to sell and didn't have any issues to sell, but the zoning was light office, we thought, needed to be OM with the promise from the buyer. First, our drainage issues would be fixed. Any heavy rain floods our cul-de-sac. Drainage is a problem. It comes up to our yards and driveways. This has been a problem, has gone on for years. This problem has gone on for years. I believe since the Riverwalk was built. Second, realizing our concerns for safety and lost property values, he agreed to build a 2-story office that looked to look like a garage home. When we voiced that our property would not be private, he offered to have no windows in the back of the office. Thirdly, the buyer promised to have a 6 to 8 foot fence or wall for our security. Under those terms, we had no problems and felt finding our neighborhood to be safe and secure. We all watched as 2 houses that were levied, the noise greatly increased, the property wasn't cleaned up right away, and children and adults started cutting through the property, coming into the cul-de-sac. It was nearly 4th of July, and I feared that people would get hurt from metal debris in a basement hole that was partially covered. I wrote the city, and it was roped off. Afterwards, it was cleaned up more and filled in. I wanted to see the building progress, but there never was none. Now we find out that the deal we thought we had obviously someone had disappeared, and we are here yet again about this property. The comprehensive plan says, and I quote, prevent the intrusion of inharmonious land users into the residential area, and also to promote a safe and secure environment. That is all we are asking for. That is all I am looking for. We are residents, not riverfront entertainment, and please protect our neighborhood. Just 2 more. Judy Catlett, she actually wrote a physical letter that I typed out. 709 East C Street. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Judy Catlett. I reside on 709 East C Street, now for 47 years. I am writing in protest of your proposed zoning of said property, general location 813 East B Street, here in Jenks. We have fought this zoning change 2 other times, and we are still against the change. It will decrease in property values, and no one at all needs that. Traffic on B Street is bad enough. On good days, there have been many near-miss accidents on the intersection. Adding a medium-intensity riverfront entertainment district designation will only add to the existing problems. We have some noise from the Louise when outside activities are going on, but from the Riverwalk area, when they have loud bands and singers, the noise is very loud. We can have a party and hear the music for our party or for your party on loud and clear. I also have questions about the buffer zone required. See comprehensive plan, and in her letter she attached a page from the comprehensive plan that said essentially a recommendation of buffer zones when needed. I believe this proposed change is not wanted or needed in order to make Jenks better for the people who reside in this wonderful little city and are very proud to call Jenks home. We don't want or need entertainment areas near our homes and neighborhoods. Thank you for your consideration, Judy Catlett. And one final one from Ron and Linda Whitewater. Our opposition, or their, they was their address, but yeah, I believe they live in that cul-de-sac as well. Our opposition of said property to change, from OM to ROC, the westbound traffic from the bridge into Riverwalk at the 4-way stop will not accommodate another commercial property there. There's Louis and other restaurants that use this area. B Street is narrow, 2-lane road. I cannot see expansion of road to widening B Street. The Jenks High School kids use B Street. This area is total gridlock for several hours. We as homeowners do not want another property to add more traffic to our neighborhood. Regards, Ron and Linda Whitewater. And that's it.
Thank you, Brandon. Okay.
Okay. In regards to the overall project, like I said, I would like to explain a little bit. We were supposed to hear all 5 of these cases 2 weeks ago, and some citizens did show up at City Hall, and I believe we just heard their comments as Brandon read through them. But because of the confusion, we asked that they be continued to this next regularly scheduled meeting. So tonight, there are 5 items on the agenda. Staff has recommended for the public to hear that I have recommended action be taken on the comprehensive plan amendment, and any further action be continued to the next regularly scheduled meeting. This parcel, as you heard in the comments from the citizen, has had a history of request. In August of 2018, there was a request to rezone to CS. The Planning Commission and City Council expressed concerns, and it was denied. There was a new application which was processed January 19th. It was JZ 635. It was a request to rezone from RS1 to OM. At that time, the applicant was interested in building a 1 to 2 story office building, which would have been approximately 3,000 to 8,000 square feet on the north, reserving the south for future development. That item was approved. The comprehensive plan did not require any amendment at that time. Since then, we have a Mr. Fiddler, I believe, at that time, and Mr. Bell can correct me if I'm wrong, who purchased it and intended to build an office building, had a change of plans, and would like to sell the property. The concept right now is a restaurant use, and it would require changing the comprehensive plan. So if you're following on the agenda, it would be, right now we're turning to page 33. Let me scroll down a little bit. And so basically, this is just the planning data. The intended use is commercial, and I said possibly a restaurant, but it is certainly a restaurant. I would also like to say that staff met last week internally, and since then I have spoken with Mr. Bell, who is the applicant on this project. Since then, we've asked him to create a more restrictive planned unit development as the overlay for the zoning. And he has agreed to those changes, which he can talk about that if he would like. We have asked that only a restaurant use be allowed, and he asked that restaurant plus office. So it would just be restaurant use and then office, which I believe is use unit 11. And he would make those corrections before another hearing would be held on the PUD. The current comprehensive plan is medium intensity office. And if you were to look on page 34, it talks about the comprehensive plan amendment. And there's a little map, which I clipped out of the actual land use map for the comprehensive plan. What I want to point out is the properties adjacent to the west of this is currently zoned RS1, and they do have single family houses, but the comprehensive plan allows for office medium intensity for that whole area. So in regards to the one public comment, that would allow for a buffer to the west. And I believe the buffer that would be used would not be a zoning buffer, but would be a physical buffer based on screening and would be based on screening and landscaping. So I'm going to go back to page 33 or 12 of the staff report and just talk about this comprehensive plan amendment would actually require a land use map amendment as well as a text amendment. So the map, the request is to change from medium intensity office to keep the intensity to medium, but change the riverfront entertainment tourism district. The text amendment would be page 10, section 2.5, which would say the west boundary of the district shall be amended to include the south. And basically, what I'm going to read next are the legal descriptions for the 3 parcels that would be included in the text change. There was a lot of confusion when the mailer went out on the zoning application, and I just want to do a little bit of clarification. If you were to look on page 35 of the entire agenda or page 4 of the staff report, there's a map down at the bottom. The city owns the property. Yes, sir.
Can I interrupt you for a second? And I don't know if anybody's struggling following you. When I printed out my documents, the page numbering kind of changes around because the page numbering that I've got at the bottom is following what was submitted, so I'm not seeing those page numbers that you're referencing.
I am looking on the computer because I have the computer pulled up, and then I also, so the computer would say, if you look at the top of the PDF, it has page 35 of 122.
Yeah, is anybody else on your computer looking at it? Is there a way that Brandon can pull that up so we can make sure we're on the same page?
Carrie, let me ask Carrie if he's available to do that. Can you follow the staff report, Mr. Brown?
Yeah, I can go back to the staff report.
Okay. I'll give you a second there.
Okay.
For the public benefit, I just really wanted to clarify that there was a lot of confusion about which lot we were talking about, and everyone believed that the RS1, which is actually the street had already been rezoned. It is not rezoned. It is currently owned by the city. It is the street and it is RS1. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that, because the public was very confused on that, and perhaps some of the planning commissioners were as well. So I'm going to stick real quick to page 2 of 12, if you all are with me, okay? And again, if you're following the line on, Carrie says he'll have that pulled up in just a little bit. If you're on page 33 of 122, the current zoning is office medium, and I just explained that was approved earlier in 2019. The request is for river-oriented commercial. The general location is 813 East B Street, and that is going to be north of B Street and to the west of what is known as Riverwalk or Riverfront Drive. It's a 1 acre. It's currently unplatted. There is a portion in the code that says anytime there's a change of zoning that it requires a plat, and that plat has to be filed with the county before you can get a building permit. So that's kind of the conditions there. Let's see here. There was some TAC comments, which we won't get into right now, and that's pretty much, unless you have any specific questions for me, that's pretty much all I have to say regarding the actual comprehensive plan amendment. So the question is the text amendment and the last land use map amendment an acceptable change, which will allow for the rezoning and possible creation of what Mr. Bell is considering a gateway feature to that area?
Okay, and with that, let's open it up for a conversation with the commissioners and your thoughts on that. Does anyone have an opinion about the text amendment and the land use map amendment being an acceptable change?
Yeah, this is Scott. I have a question about the why did we allow the public comments to be read tonight as opposed to previously we've just received them in an email and read them ourselves?
The very first time we did the public hearing, Brandon read them, if you'll remember, and because it was kind of hard to hear, we ended up having to reread them the next time. So I just thought this time we would go ahead and read them up front, and that gives the applicant time to respond if they have anything to respond to. And also by putting them visually online, that helps the public to, if they cannot hear well with their computer system or their phone, that allows them the opportunity to read along if they can do that.
Okay, so going forward, well, assuming this is the way we do meetings the next few weeks, few months, that will be policy.
I am fine with it, but you, as the planning commission, can make a different recommendation if you so choose.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. I think Carrie may have let us know that he has it available. Let me see. Okay, if you want any particular page pulled up and have a screen share, Carrie is available to do that. So, Mr. Brown, if you have anything that you want the public to see or talk about, Carrie can pull it up for us.
Yes, just a clarification on what I had as page 4 of 12. Just for clarification, we are only talking about the section to the east adjacent to the Riverwalk, or is that the bordered piece? Is that, again, we've got 2 plats there.
Are you talking about the comprehensive plan amendment?
No, I'm on page 4 of, yes, sorry, the rezoning, page 4 of 12. I'm just trying to, or should we just be looking at 3 of 12?
Yes, could you go to page 3 of 12, Carrie? Okay, if you could zoom in, I don't know how hard it is, but we'll give Carrie a lot of grace. So if you'll see here, I've put a little blue dotted line, and there are actually 3 parcels. So when this notice went out, there were 3 legal descriptions. And in order to get the river-oriented, the Riverfront Entertainment District amendment, that it would require that little parcel, which still looks yellow, that's adjacent to the Riverwalk, and it's either on the levee or over the levee. I'm not exactly sure looking at this. And then there is the city parcel and then the parcel that we are asking to rezone. So it is 3 contiguous parcels.
Correct.
And they would all be included in the comprehensive plan amendment.
Okay, so then if we can, again, because of thinking about the location of the residential properties that are adjacent to this whole area, if we could look at 4 of 12, in the center portion, we've got the piece that's bordered, the piece to the east, and then the section to the west.
Correct.
The area that we're looking at developing is going to be restricted wholly to the piece on the east side. Is that correct?
It would only, the rezoning would only take place in the parcel that's outlined by the yellow dots.
Okay.
So that parcel with the street on it to the east, and that little piece adjacent, which you can't really tell on this zoning map.
Yes, I see what you're talking about now. Okay.
It would take all 3 of those in order to be contiguous with the existing river entertainment.
Right, because the city piece is in there and the street is in there. I get it.
Yes.
You can't,
So, yeah.
So the piece to the west then, outside of the dotted area, would remain then either light office or residential.
We are not asking for any change in the comprehensive plan, and it is currently medium intensity office.
So there would still be a buffer zone to the west.
That is correct.
Okay. Last question I would have on this would be, we had talked about getting some feedback regarding Horizon Jenks, if our planners had any thoughts based upon all of the public comments and everything that has gone into the whole comprehensive plan. And I realize this can factor in there, but the fact that we brought in the entire community in this rezoning, or this new comprehensive planning process, when we parcel this out like this, we're going to, to some extent, maybe spot zoning, so to speak. I've got no argument as to, the benefit to the city and to the Riverwalk district having that there. But again, just wanting to hear what our coordinators with Horizon had to say.
The general idea that we have talked about is if something is approved in the next week or 2 before we actually go for final adoption, the map that they will be presenting that will be approved will match whatever is approved by the Planning Commission, or recommended for approval by Planning Commission and approved by City Council. They didn't have any, because it borders the street that leads into the Riverwalk. It can potentially be considered part of that gateway.
Yeah, I guess my question was, did they have an opinion based upon all the work that's gone into the new comp plan, or the new proposed comp plan? Did they have any thoughts about the fact that this might eliminate a piece of buffer zone and the fact that it does border a residential area?
No, and I think one of the things that they are looking at is probably higher density type opportunities in the downtown area as well. So it probably fits better with the vision that is being proposed in the comp plan.
John, one thing I wanted to, you said it's hopefully you guys can hear me better now.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, much better.
Okay. So when you talked about to the west, you're right on the street to the west. There is a buffer zone, but there are 3 houses that border the northernmost portion of that lot. So there are 3 houses to the west that would not have a buffer, and then obviously the houses that are in the cul-de-sac to the north as well. So I think that's one thing we need to make sure we understand.
Yeah,
I think the argument there, Commissioner, is that those 3 houses are already set up by the comprehensive plan to be medium intensity office.
Okay.
Anyone else with some questions or comments about this?
Marseille, what options would we have to require fencing?
Could you repeat your question?
Sorry, I'm getting some feedback from someone, but what options would we have to require some fencing? You know, whether, you know, visual or if it would have some sort of sound capability as well.
Right.
I'm not sure if that's possible at this step, just because it's a comprehensive plan change request.
Correct. You are correct that it wouldn't be anything you could take action on. Well, I mean, you really wouldn't, because you're just asking if this is an acceptable intensity. So the action is yes, we are okay with the intensity, or no, we are not. But the planned unit development definitely has a screening component to it and a landscape component to it. And you could make it conditional that any approved PUD have additional screening and buffering with landscaping.
That kind of, this is John again, that kind of raises the same question for me by splitting this decision out on these 5 separate components. If we make the decision that we see that this is acceptable under the comprehensive plan, what then would prohibit then Mr. Bell or the owners to come back and propose something completely different, even without a PUD under the ROC?
From a staff perspective, we will not recommend approval of a rezoning without a planned unit development in order to protect the neighbors in that area. I know it was previously rezoned without a planned unit development. I don't think that that's a good idea because of the sensitivity of the residents there to the sound, etc. So as I will not be recommending any approval of rezoning without a planned unit development on top of it. If you do recommend approval of this intensity and council does approve it, that is what will come before you. It will be a rezoning request with a planned unit development, which should have a much meatier and much more restrictive development opportunity. And I think that it would be, you would not normally have that it's very difficult to not have the full conversation. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Marseille, this is Leon. Can I ask a question about this as well? Is it possible in that PUD process to go ahead and describe the boundary, that portion of the legal description, and then place a restriction on the deed that prohibits them from doing anything else than placing a screening it off for the residents?
Do you have a specific screening in mind?
I think that's something that that they need to propose and get approved with the residents, so that they're looking at something that's aesthetically pleasing, since they're going to be doing this development. Because that's an item that keeps coming up in the comments, is the concern with the screening and some type of language that restricts the height. Because I've been in that situation myself where some apartments were built and I lived in a gated community. The next thing I know, I had people with binoculars looking through my backyard and in the windows of my house. And so we sold the house and moved.
I am not, I've never heard of anyone making a recommendation for a deed restriction. And I do believe that the planned unit development is restrictive enough if that language is included in the approved document. And the deed restriction, as far as the actual deed, it probably wouldn't happen, but it goes into the plat. The plat language generally carries the PUD language.
Right.
So
but if the ownership hasn't exchanged, then there's still time for it to build in the deed restriction as an extra safeguard against them deviating from what they promised to do in terms of the screening.
Are you talking about deed restriction in the truest sense of the word, or just making sure that it's in the deed of dedication in the plat?
Just true sense of the word of deed restrictions.
Okay. I'll be honest, that is something that I'm not familiar with. Mr. Bell in his experience may have been, but I'm not saying it couldn't be part of the recommendation at the zoning PUD plat level. I'm just not familiar with it being.
Wouldn't the deed be more between the buyer and the seller? I think from a city perspective, you'd probably want it more in the PUD, sort of a covenant that governs it.
We can enforce the PUD.
Right. So there's different ways to do it, but that would probably be where we would want to pit whatever conditions or restrictions that we would want.
Certainly.
I mean, I guess if that is the precedence in terms of how it's been done in the past, I'm just suggesting, because I've seen it done in conjunction with one another before the property was transferred over.
Right.
To protect the intent of the development that was proposed to residents, that we put restrictions on the deed that go with the deed, and in order for them to do anything else, then they would be forced to come back to lift those items and talk to the residents about doing anything other than what was proposed. But if that's not necessary, then we can go ahead and leave it alone.
Sure, that would be required. One of the conversations that I've had with Mr. Bell is if there was any deviation from the site plan or the use that he's asking for, that it would require a major amendment, and it would require a major amendment to the PUD, and which would require another notice and another legal conversation.
Okay, so the PUD will spell out the boundaries with legal description language.
Yes.
That identifies that. Okay.
Yes.
So if I can weigh in on that question again, when we've talked about rezoning issues in the past and about the breadth of our current commercial zoning code, I know we've talked about what type of restaurant is proposed to go in here. Once we approve this, if this is approved and it goes in restricted to office or a restaurant, concern that I would have is, again, thinking about concerns for the residents surrounding it, the type of restaurant that goes in there would really have some bearing on my thoughts. I'll give you an example of that, and I'm just going to throw some wild examples out. A family-oriented Italian restaurant, it'd be completely different from a restaurant that markets itself as a biker bar, where the parking lot's going to be full with Harley Davidsons at 9 p.m. at night. Same thing, another restaurant coming in that they build their business model around a drive up, to where instead of cars coming in and parking and people going inside to dine, the majority of their traffic then is cars coming in and out constantly, adding noise and the exhaust fumes. So that does have some bearing. So can we get restrictive enough in the PUD that would limit the type of restaurant that could go in, and maybe the external features?
You can definitely distinguish between a drive up and a regular dine in. That is actually already part of the code, and it is the current presentation would not include a drive up if you're talking about a Sonic or something like that.
Sure.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. There's others that build, Burger Street. They've
Sure.
got a two-side model where they're coming in and out on the side. So
that's a different use in the zoning code, and that is not being proposed at this time. So in that sense, it is protected. I do not believe, I could be wrong, but I do not believe that you could actually say, you can try no biker restaurants, but I don't know. I don't know how lawful that is.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. I just kind of threw that as an example to illustrate, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think that it would likely be a lawful act on our part to, distinguish between what is or what type of restaurant can and can't go there beyond what's already in the code that allow, drive up
Right.
or whatever. I think if we start talking about a sit-down restaurant, we're not going to have control over that. And maybe this and my concern here is this first, business may go in. We may end up with a a very nice restaurant, but if it fails, as many restaurants do, and sells, we're down the road now of not really having any control over that. And so to me, the traffic is an issue, but the biggest issue is the noise to me. No, and I understand that. I think we can put walls up and do those kind of things, but I don't think you can protect from, a restaurant that has a patio that has, music on it. Those are the kind of things that certainly concern me about putting it in this location.
Again, that's why I asked that. It's not the restaurant we're talking about now. It's the one that could come after. Could be, I won't mention any failed Mexican restaurants in Jenks, but if we had another restaurant that went in and decided they wanted to do, for example, a mariachi band outside every night, that could be, disruptive to the residents. So that's my concerns as well, is the noise.
We did ask the applicant in the revised PUD that would be presented if this were approved, to restrict the noise to, and I believe the conversation that we've had would be there could be no amplified sound. If you felt like in the future that was not restrictive enough, you could certainly have that conversation during the PUD conversation.
I would think amplified sound and the limiting on the hours for dining that could happen outside. If we could put like a 9, I know we put restrictions on hours of operation and other, PUDs around the city. If there was a way to limit the outside dining to, let's say, 9 p.m. during the summer, that would be, a reasonable thing, if we can do that.
You can certainly request it.
Yeah, I think the noise is really key for whether the intensity is appropriate. So again, I realize this is not the time to do that, but we need that condition, or I would at least, in order to improve this sort of intensity level. So it's tied together. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
I think one of the things that we need to take into consideration is the question that was asked if this river-oriented commercial is a good fit at this intersection. Down in the Riverwalk area, almost everything down there is a restaurant already existing with entertainment or without entertainment, and a lot of restaurants have already come and gone in that area, which shows, is there really a demand for another restaurant in that particular area, with Louis being right across the street and a residential neighborhood being directly behind it. I find myself thinking a lot about whether this really is a smart fit for this corner. I think there's going to be a lot of traffic problems with getting in and out of that corner facility. I remember having the conversation of saying no to commercial and yes to medium office, because it was a good fit going down there. And if you continue westward down B Street, there's a lot of nice little office buildings, and that whole street is very nicely settled with some nice little homes and some and office buildings that are down there. And although I realize this is the gateway going into Riverwalk, I'm really struggling to wonder if this really is the right thing to put in that corner. Not to say that being a restaurant owner myself, it's nice to have another restaurant in the area to be able to go to. And like someone already pointed out, restaurants don't always make it. It's a tough business to be in. And if this nice restaurant doesn't work and something else comes in, it just kind of opens up down the road for something else that could potentially be a problem. And I do believe that parking and driving in that area and traffic is going to be a big issue. Anyone else think of anything like that?
This almost seems akin to the waterfront grill restaurant, which is a little bit separated. It's different than sort of the complex with Los Cabos and others there, which is set back, and I think is a separate set of challenges. But no, you're exactly right. I agree with you. This is something that further there could be traffic problems. Has there been any consideration to, if this were to move forward, to improve that intersection with, B Street and whatever that is, North-South Street right there?
The actual intersection, internally, we have not talked about the actual intersection. We have talked about allowing access onto Riverfront Drive, which would be would alleviate a lot of the east-west traffic, or at least going west. If in fact you were just coming across the bridge or something you could get on, go straight south and then get on the bridge.
I'll answer a lot of these questions, Marcia, if they'll ever let me talk.
Would you like to hear from the applicant? Mr. Bell is available if you are interested in speaking with him at this time.
I think we're at the point where we can listen to Mr. Bell speak. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay.
Before we do, real quick, can I just say one more thing?
Yes.
I think the traffic on B Street, I understand that issue and that concern for the residents as well. It's not really a major thoroughfare. I understand the students using it, and I'm sure at certain times of the day it's probably heavy. But is traffic coming out of this piece of property going onto B Street? Or I know you said you've made an allowance for it to go onto Riverfront Drive, but is that the only entrance and exit for that property, or is there going to be one on B Street as well?
There would be one on B Street as well.
Okay. That's all I have. Thanks.
Okay. Robert?
Chairman, members of the commission, it's great to be, I guess I can stand in front of you, or at least I can hear you at that point. I'll try to answer a lot of these questions, and myself I was taken back by splitting the PUD away from the comp plan because they're so synonymous. But I told Marseille that I'll support that, and I'll try to give you guys an idea of the level of restrictions that we're putting on this property through the PUD to protect the neighborhoods. I think the whole intent, I'm going to start back here at the request in the 3 parcels. And what I think is that there's that little sliver that's low intensity in the plan is an area that is a part of the reserve area of Riverwalk that was a part of Riverwalk Crossings. I think it's Reserve Area A at that point. And because it moved west of the levee, it didn't get caught up in the original Riverfront Entertainment designation, because that designation follows the levee, and all properties associated with that designation were in the floodplain, and a lot of the purpose of that designation was development of the floodplain properties. So that little sliver in there is an error, and something needed to happen with that. The city property is 1 acre in size. It's the same as the property that I'm associated with, and the city's property is designated medium with an office restriction on it, the same as the 1 acre to the west of it. And it's already developed with the access road to Riverwalk and the signage for Riverwalk. So it's already, that's an area that's already being used in a fashion that is not in conformance with the comp plan with the office restriction. So, and so with that being said, I'm dealing with, that was the reason why, that's justification for changing the map or the comprehensive plan text out of the floodplain area to incorporate those 2 properties, because they're already being used in association with the Riverfront Entertainment District at that point. So what I would say, I move towards the fact that the office restriction was placed on this property way back before Riverwalk was ever developed. Before there was a riverfront entertainment district. That's obvious because the city property has that office restriction on it also. That means the office restriction was placed on this property for the purpose of protecting the sprawl of the commercial associated with A Street and Main Street towards the residential neighborhood. That was the intent. Later on, the school traffic got heavier and the traffic associated with Riverwalk was in that area, and we all kind of said, well, the office development will protect some of the traffic concepts that are down there, and that are transpiring. Brandon, do you have those 3 slides that I sent to you? Can we bring up the air photo that has the buildings and the fence?
Give me a second.
Okay.
Carrie's working on it.
Okay, and I'm going to keep talking here. So for years, I was in support that office was the right use for this property. It definitely was limiting, and I saw this property as more or less a blight to the most important commercial development that the city of Jenks has. Now that's changing with some of the stuff that we've got coming up, but it's still Riverwalk and the Riverfront Entertainment District, which Simon's a part of and the aquarium's a part of. That's the most important commercial element of the city of Jenks at that point. So Brandon, you're in I sent those 3 to you separately if you don't have them.
Yeah, they're in my email. I'm sending them to Carrie.
Okay. So the question is how do you, if the original design was to protect the sprawl of the commercial into the residential neighborhoods, then what is proposed as including that 1 acre east of the road into the entertainment district fully accomplishes that far greater than a medium density with the office restriction on it, because there is no justification to extend it any farther than that. And there is justification to include this property into the, because it's a part of that intersection at that point, as an entrance to the entertainment district. So this, by including this property into the Riverfront Entertainment District, we basically drawn a line in the sand and said, this is the extent of it. So, and then you have a buffer outside of that, which is medium office with the office restriction on the 3 parcels at that point. Now, when it really jumped out at me, because I saw this property as a blight. I saw the fence as a blight. I saw the fence as a problem with traffic circulation in the area. You couldn't even drive out of Riverwalk without being blocked. It didn't jump out at me and until all that was gone, and I saw what the city's been missing is the development of this piece to be the entrance to the entertainment district, or however that is. Now, we recognize that we have some development around there that's been there for years and years that we need to protect, and therefore, I submitted the zone change, and I'll talk about the zone change a little bit. the city council heard that zoning on August 18th, and you can see that, Brandon finally got the picture up as it exists with the houses there and the fence up, and how this was a blight and looked to be separated and not a part of that intersection. Brandon, I'm already past this point. If you want to go to the next slide, which is the picture of the property now, or if it's Carrie. Can we go to the next slide? While they're doing that, the what's available to us zoning wise in the medium intensity is either a CS, CG, or an LC, which is light commercial at that point. So when the council and the planning commission also, there was recognized need of this had ability, maybe should be commercial at that point. At the council meeting, the council actually asked the applicant when they were filing for the CS zoning district if he would entertain or if he would accept the light commercial zoning. So there's not a lot of difference between light commercial and CS commercial shopping, except in intensity level to the property. That drawing you had up there was perfect if you can put it back up. So I'm going to go to that one next, but I want the picture that was there. So when it comes to when we created the Riverfront Entertainment District, we created it with two zones that were applicable to that district, and one was a riverfront-oriented commercial, and the other was a tourist-related commercial. And those two zones are the most restrictive zones in the commercial development in the Jenks Code at this point. So the reason they're restrictive is we didn't want the certain uses that you would find in the CS in the Riverfront District. We don't want gas stations down there and that area is floodplain, and you don't want to have, gas tanks underground. So it was really restrictive. In fact, there was only like 4 different uses that were allowed in there. So my original PUD was written to restrict, and the reason I submitted a PUD was to protect the neighbors and to restrict the use that I didn't think was appropriate, and that was hotel motel. Now, I don't want to get too far into the PUD until I can kind of describe what it is we're willing to do and how it will work for the neighborhood. But so the council in 2018 recognized that a real limited commercial was appropriate at that point, but that office restriction was the only thing we had that allowed us to make that restriction without going through some sort of the plan unit development criteria. So, just lifting that office restriction leaves that medium intensity in place there without that restriction, and would allow for further sprawl into the neighborhoods at that point, where changing it to the Riverfront Entertainment District draws that line in the sand, protects the neighborhood even more, allows for more limited commercial to be put on there, and I'm going to limit it more with it and to include what I've already submitted and to incorporate what Marseille and I have already discussed. And as you see on this picture that Brandon is showing us now, that's the piece, that's the entrance to the most important commercial area in the city of Jenks at that point. And from the intersection, this gets developed. Now we can move to the plat site plan that I submitted that you had up, Jerry. And I will tell you that what we did was, in the original PUD write-up, we had an 8-foot fence, even though those properties over there have a office designation to them, they're developed as residential. We said any property developed for residential use, which include past Lloyd Landreth's office development, starting at the back of that, all the way down through the north line, and along the north line, there'll be developed an 8-foot privacy fence, solid fence, and my guess is it'll be capped with a wood cap, just for, because that's usually what commercial developments do at that point. Also, I was concerned with water. The history of the stormwater in this property runs off the north track. So by developing that in parking lot in the north half, that fence will go along that property line. No water can transfer in there, and all that water actually goes to that creek bed and goes to the detention facility that's located on the east side already. That's where it all goes. And all we're going to do is we're going to circumvent that, but not let it go towards the neighborhood, the residential areas, and have it drain directly towards the existing detention facility there on the city's property. That will require engineering, hydrology, and to make sure all that works fine. And so that'll come out in the with the building permit at that point. I also incorporated the property into the Riverfront Entertainment District. Now I don't know the Biden PUD, and so I don't know what the new comp plan or how all that's going to work in the future. But what we're stipulating to is that any changes from the site plan that we've got right now would have to go back through the PUD amendment process, and that even trumps the architectural review through the RC process. We've also, if you look at that site plan, I designed that parking lot so traffic can come in off of B Street and go in the back, and the north half of that property where all the residential is, there's no building. It's all parking lot. And it's surrounded by 8-foot fence on both sides. So it's a one-way street. So it's a one-way on the west side of the property and a one-way east. And with the access point that we're asking for to put in right there to attach to what is Riverfront Drive, the traffic would have to either turn back to the right and all the way out the property to get back to B Street, or they could just access that exit road onto Riverfront Drive and out to the intersection, which solves a lot of the traffic problems at that point. In my discussion with Marseille, she was saying they were concerned with music on the exterior of the building. What I would tell you that the only place for a outside seating area is on the east side of the building. There's about 15 feet of land in there that has the ability to have a seating area in it, and we're more than comfortable specifying that there will be no amplified sound from anything in that area. And I don't even know if Louis has outside speakers or not in their area, and I know Riverwalk does in places. We'll just eliminate all that at that point. Also, we think it would be helpful in the future as things grow, and this will help a little bit with the Riverwalk activity, if we plant evergreen trees along the north property line in that 5-foot area, in that area, even though that may take a few years to be greater than what the fence, an 8-foot fence will do, but that'll help absorb some of the sound that comes that way. Though I don't think any sound would come from the restaurant facility that's being proposed right now. The hours of operation of this facility currently of the proposed user is 10 o'clock in the morning to 11. The school traffic is already by there when they start. Their top end and their high end, their more pressure is usually from 11 to 1, and then the school traffic is at, hits there at 2:30. This traffic is associated with the business is decreased by that time. Those are perfect hours, shifting times to make sure that it's most compatible with the use that's being proposed. I'm concerned with the concerns that Mr. Landers had. I'll propose in the PUD that there will be no pneumatic stamps for land compaction, that they have to roll it. And I also am concerned about the proximity of the inroad from B Street along this parking lot, and I think there needs to be a landscaping feature put into that area. What that is, I don't know, but whatever it is, will stop cars from. It can't be tall enough to be an impact to the street, but it can be at the right size and the right strength to protect cars from crossing between those properties at that point. So I have no problem with that, and we'll include that. I would say that what I'm going to propose is that all those landscaping features will have to be submitted with a landscape plan at the time of the building. But all those that I just brought up to the surface level to talk about would have to be written in the PUD as a requirement. So any building permit can't be approved unless it meets those things, and that will be in the deed of dedication at that point. Out of the 20 years that I've been associated with Jenks, I don't know that I believe in an application more than I believe in this one. This property has been a hindrance to the city, but it's also been a hindrance to itself and some of the restrictions and the applications that are proposed for it. This opens this property up. It protects the neighborhood. It gives the neighborhood more protection than they would have with the office development in that location, and it meets with the Riverfront Entertainment District guidelines. It flows with that property. It flows with the intersection. It enhances the front door of Jenks and stops the sprawl of commercial development further into the neighborhood at that point. So if you got any questions for me, I think I've said enough.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Bell?
The school traffic actually lets out at 4 o'clock, not 2:30. So it could be a problem. Also, is the parking lot going to be lit up? Which would obviously cause problems for the residents.
I can barely hear you.
His comment was that the school gets out at 4 o'clock and not 2:30, and will there be lighting in the parking lot?
the lighting in the parking lot will have to be directed away from the residential neighborhood at that point. And we can definitely take, it definitely has to be lighted for safety purposes, but there's ways and different height levels and ways to install that. I'd be happy to include a lighting plan to be submitted with the building permit. And the school, the bus system runs at 2:30 in the afternoon. That's what bogs that intersection up, is the big yellow Ford that goes there every day at 2:30.
We have new school hours, Robert. The school does not get out till 3:55.
And okay, but the same applies. The afternoon, there's a law after 2 o'clock and to 5 o'clock, 5:30, when their business picks up at that point. So I wouldn't go past 5, but most people get off work at 5 o'clock and not looking to go out and eat till after 5 at that point, and that's where their peak business comes in the evening. And they close their doors at 11. They're not 12 o'clock. They're not 1. And I guarantee you that the price of this land, that you're not going to have any biker bars.
Any other questions for Mr. Bell?
Yeah, Robert, the 11 p.m., is that in the PUD?
It is not, but I'm willing to do that. I don't know. I caution us to, we're not impacting a lot of residential areas at that point, and we're actually improving the area in the development of those residentials. I don't want to, and as Carol said, running a restaurant is tough and hard, and the more restrictions you put on them, the more likely they're going to fail. And we don't want them to fail. So I just know that the people that we're talking with are currently in Brookside, and they're open until 11 o'clock at night.
So that includes some type of bar, I assume, inside.
Definitely.
If they're open till 11, I assume most people aren't eating dinner at 10 o'clock at night.
Correct.
Okay.
Anyone else? No other questions for Mr. Bell? Thank you, Robert. Any other conversation or questions on this agenda item?
Just some general observations, Carol. I think, thinking about the land use, yes, Robert is right. The property was a blight, and it's good that it's down now. The fact that it is down is much better to the neighborhood. And the question is, what's going to happen to that location? From a city standpoint, the idea of office going in there, which is what we've kind of leaned heavily on, does provide a better buffer for the residential area. There's no way that location that anybody would put another residence in there. So it's, even though it was R1, it's not going to go back in there. And because of the location, the idea that somebody's going to invest the money to put an office in, it could sit vacant for quite a while. Of course, if we get an office in there, doesn't necessarily then provide any draw point of destination for Jenks. And of course, we get an office in there, that's going to be service industry that doesn't necessarily provide revenue for the city. And as he's proposed, yes, I've seen the gateway commercial in a lot of a lot of districts like the Riverwalk. The question we've got is changing the comp plan, expanding outside the levy. Is that appropriate? I think we all feel like anything developing commercial on the other side of the levee along the river district is beneficial. It's a minor encroachment, but it is an encroachment. It is an expansion of the commercial district. So that's really the question. Is it appropriate for us to change the comp plan for this one location? We're going to hit the same issue when we start talking about the Horizon Jenks when we get south of Ward 1, south of Maine, because we're going to run into the same things. How do we connect Maine with with where we're going on the south side of the creek? So we're going to run into the same issue on the south side. So we just have to decide, where we want to draw the lines. And I'm conflicted, admittedly.
I agree. Anyone else?
I've just got two thoughts. One, I really like the site plan. I realize we're not looking at that tonight, but putting the parking towards the north, we amplify the music. I think the steps that I was thinking of seem to have been taken, fencing, that sort of thing. That helps sell this in my mind. The other thing is we've talked about, in the comprehensive plan, making some sort of pedestrian-friendly zone beyond just the riverfront area. And it'd be nice if we could get some sidewalks. Maybe this is beyond the scope of this meeting, but there's probably going to be some people who go to the restaurant and would want to walk to other areas kind of to the east across the levee. And just kind of I think that'd be good, but we probably need some sidewalks to make that happen.
That's a good thing to look at when we get to the PUD.
That's all I had.
I got kicked off, so I'm back on, but I don't think I missed anything, so.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Carol, this is Scott. The last couple of applications that have come through, the number one thing that I have heard from citizens in that cul-de-sac to the north is about water. Number one, about the water, and number two, about pedestrian traffic. And with an 8-foot screening, fencing going through there, that's going to eliminate, obviously, the foot traffic. And water always gets better when we have an engineer come in, a hydrologist, and capture that and meter it off back to the river. So I think those two things, those are the two biggest concerns that I've heard from citizens in the last 4 or 5 years in that area. And I think both of those things will improve with this.
I agree.
And Scott, to back that as well, I think the prior applications that just since in the couple of years that I've been on the commission, prior applications were much broader than this application is. I agree with Mr. Bell that limiting it beyond where we were and what general CS zoning would allow, I think that I'm like John. I'm very conflicted, primarily because I understand the noise issue that it is potentially going to exist, and if we can through the PUD process, do everything we can to restrict that as much as possible. So I think that's another thing. Because to me, you're right. Those 2 points, noise, and Craig's point earlier about the light, those are the things that I can see as being very problematic for those residents. And if we can get a very restricted option in there to correct the problem that exists on that piece of property, I think that's our best option.
Yep, I agree. Anyone
Yeah, I'll
else?
throw one more comment in there too, just kind of following that, Travis, and that is, this is an eventuality. If this is not done now, again, residents is not going to go back in there, and the question is it viable for somebody to put an office in? And my concern is we're not going to all be on the commission. and a future commission or a future council may be more interested in the tax revenue and just pass it through with the CS. So, by working with the PUD and being restrictive, we can try to get a better bargain for the residents and for the city with controlling the process. So I don't know if I call it lesser of two evils, but it's, if we can make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, maybe that's what we need to do.
Okay, thank you. Anyone ready to make an motion?
I've been pretty vocal on this, so I'm going to go ahead and stick my neck out. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we change the comprehensive plan, modify the comprehensive plan to approve the ROC under the restrictions that we can come back with the PUD to address all of the items that have been discussed this evening.
I'll second that.
Travis Fulkerson,
Yes.
John Brown,
Yes.
Scott West,
Yes.
Leon Davis,
Yes.
Craig Bowman,
Yes.
David Randolph,
Yes.
Carol Minden.
Yes. Okay, motion carries. And that is the business part of our agenda this evening. As was stated earlier, items 2, 3, 4, and 5 will be continued at the next session after the city council meets and approves this agenda item. Marcia, anything else for us this evening?
Thank you all for your time and for just being willing to hear this case and to go through the process of continuing it and splitting it and just being patient with staff and with the applicant. I appreciate that very much. The comprehensive plan, they've been waiting on your planner, got all of their questions answered, and I am supposed to be speaking with them probably tomorrow. I actually thought they were calling today. We didn't set up a time, but I just expected a phone call today. So they should be calling tomorrow, maybe Monday, and we'll go through the final steps. And hopefully within the next 2 weeks, you'll have something in your hand to be looking at. So that still puts us, the original timeline was adoption midsummer, and July is midsummer.
Okay.
Hey, Marcia, I have a question. The shopping center that's getting refaced by Chase Bank, do you have what that's going to look like?
I do, and I will actually send that out tomorrow. I took 2 days writing a memo, and as you know, I write way too much. And I thought yesterday I would get it out, and I kept writing and thought I'd get it out before 5 today. I have it pretty well finished, and I'm going to send Planning Commission and the Appearance Review Committee those documents, so you'll be able to look at them, and then it will be on your next agenda.
Madam Chair, I got kicked offline for a little bit a while ago, but was there a motion to table the other items on the agenda?
I did not make a motion. I did not ask for one, but I'm more than happy to do that before we end the meeting. So may I hear a motion to table the agenda items 2, 3, 4, and 5?
So moved.
If you want it.
I did not catch who made that motion. I apologize.
I'm sorry?
Oh, it was Travis.
Thank you. And was there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Everyone spoke at the same time. Travis Fulkerson,
Yes.
John Brown,
Yes.
Scott West,
No.
Leon Davis,
Yes.
Craig Bowman,
Yes.
David Randolph,
Yes.
Chairman.
Yes. Okay, anything else for us, Marseille?
Madam Chairman, that is all I have.
Okay, all right, motion to adjourn,
So moved.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, everyone, have a good